In this video, we'll study about the foldings of the embryo. Up till now, the trilaminar germ disc is flattened and pear-shaped. The cells occupying the central part of the embryonic area grow more rapidly than those at the periphery. As a result, the embryonic area shows the development of head fold and tail fold, and you have two lateral folds at the end of the third week. These foldings convert the flattened germ disc into a cylindrical embryo and help to establish the contour of the embryo. The cephalocaudal folding is mainly caused by the rapid and longitudinal growth of the central nervous system, and the lateral foldings by the formation of rapidly growing somites. During the process of the embryonic folds, the growth of the yolk sac is retarded. Eventually, the amniotic cavity enlarges and surrounds the outer surface of the embryo so that the embryo floats in the amniotic fluid. The cephalocaudal and the lateral foldings converge on the ventral surface of the embryo in such a manner that the amniotic membrane forms a tubular investment around the connecting stalk and converts it into umbilical cord. The yolk sac cavity, on the other hand, is reduced in size and undergoes a hourglass constriction by the convergence of the fold on the ventral surface of the embryo. The part of the yolk sac within the embryonic folds forms the primitive gut. The extra embryonic part of the yolk sac forms the umbilical vesicle, which project into the fetal surface of the placenta beneath the amniotic membrane. The umbilical vesicle is temporarily connected to the primitive gut by the vitalo-intestinal duct, which passes through the umbilical cord. Now we'll see about the head fold. The germ disc bent ventrally towards the yolk sac around the cranial end of the notochord so that the forebrain vesicle occupies the cephalic extremity of the embryo. The part of the yolk sac contained within the head fold is known as the foregut, which initially a blind endodermal tube, and it communicates caudally with the midgut through the anterior intestinal portal. The dorsal wall of the foregut is supported by the notochord and the hindbrain vesicle of the neural tube. Due to the altered position of the cephalic part of the germ disc, the ventral wall of the foregut is present successively in a craniocaudal direction, the buccopharyngeal membrane, then you have the pericardial sac with the endothelial tube of the primitive heart dorsal to the sac, and you have the septum transversum. The buccopharyngeal membrane lies at the bottom of the depression of the surface ectoderm, which is known as the stomatium or the primitive oral cavity. The stomatium is bounded on the cephalic side by the forebrain vesicle and caudally by the bulging of the pericardial sac. Later, the pericardial sac is displaced more caudally from the floor of the stomatium by the ventral ends of the branchial or the pharyngeal arches. The buccopharyngeal membrane ruptures during the fourth week. Thus, the foregut communicates with the exterior through the stomatium, and the amniotic fluid gains entrance into the gut. Prior to the formation of the fold, the pericardial sac lies on the dorsal wall of the yolk sac. The head fold brings the pericardial sac on the ventral wall of the foregut with a reversal of its surface. The foregut is separated from the pericardial sac by the angioplastic type of mesenchymal cells from which the heart develops. Hence, this area of mesodermal cell is known as the cardiogenic plate. The septum transversum is a mesodermal sheet which lies caudal to the pericardial sac and the heart and extends from the body wall to the ventral surface of the foregut. Dorsal to the septum transversum, you have on each side of the gut the coelomic duct. So this is the coelomic duct which passes through the pleuroperitoneal canal. Subsequently, the canal is closed on each side by the development of the pleuroperitoneal membrane, which is gradually peeled off from the body wall by the downgrowth of the lung bud. Thus, a complete partition between the thorax and the abdomen is developed from the septum transversum. The caudal surface of the septum transversum is invaded by the hepatic bud, which grows as an endodermal diverticulum from the junction of the foregut and the midgut. The hepatic bud divides the septum into a cephalic horizontal part which is known as the pars diaphragmatica and a caudal sagittal part that is known as the pars mesenterica. The pars diaphragmatica differentiate into the upper layer forming the fibrous pericardium and a lower layer which constitute the anteromedian part of the diaphragm. The pars mesenterica forms the fibrous stroma, falciform and the coronary ligaments of the liver and the lesser omentum. Now we'll see about the tail fold. Around the caudal end of the notochord and the neural tube, the germ disc bends ventrally, enclosing a part of the yolk sac which forms the hindgut. The connecting stalk with the allanto-enteric diverticulum is carried onto the ventral wall of the hindgut. The connecting stalk subsequently forms the umbilical cord. The distal part of the allantoic canal persists as the urachus, which is connected to the apex of the urinary bladder. The proximal part of the canal incorporates with the hindgut, caudal to the umbilical cord. So this is umbilical cord, caudal to the umbilical cord. The ventral wall of the hindgut is formed by the bilaminar cloacal membrane which lies at the bottom of the surface depression that is known as the ectodermal cloaca. The ectodermal cloaca is limited on each side by a raised margin that is known as the genital fold through which the secondary mesodermal cells migrate from the primitive streak to form the infra-umbilical part of the ventral body wall. The dorsal wall of the hindgut is supported by the notochord and the neural tube, and its bottom is occupied by the primitive streak and the primitive node. The allanto-enteric diverticulum divides the hindgut into pre and post allantoic part. The pre-allantoic part forms a narrow tube and it is continuous proximally with the midgut, and the junction between the midgut and the hindgut is known as the posterior intestinal portal. The post-allantoic part of the hindgut dilates to form the endodermal cloaca. The cloacal membrane gradually shifts to the ventrocaudal wall of the cloaca, and partly due to the growth of the infra-umbilical part of the ventral body wall and partly by the regression of the primitive streak. At the later date, the cloacal membrane is subdivided by the caudal edge of the urorectal septum into a ventral urogenital membrane and a dorsal anal membrane. Both membranes disappear at the beginning of the 5th week and establish the formation of the urogenital and anal orifices. Next we'll see about the lateral folds. With the formation of the head and the tail folds, the lateral margins of the germ disc bend ventrally, enclosing a part of the yolk sac that forms the midgut. The two lateral folds thus meet with the cephalocaudal folds around the primitive umbilical ring of the ventral wall of the cylindrical embryo, where the layer of the amnio-ectodermal junction is reflected over the umbilical cord. The part of the yolk sac that lies outside the embryonic fold is ballooned out from the midgut as the umbilical vesicle, which is lodged beneath the amniotic membrane of the placenta. The umbilical vesicle is temporarily connected to the midgut by the vitelo-intestinal duct, which runs through the umbilical cord. Now, the somatopleuric layer of the lateral plate mesoderm lines the inner aspect of the parietal body wall and the ventral surface of the intermediate mesoderm of the embryo. The splanchno-pleuric layer invests the ventrolateral surface of the primitive gut, and it is reflected dorsally as a bilaminar fold of the dorsal mesentery of the gut. The root of the dorsal mesentery extends longitudinally along the ventral surface of the primitive vertebra and contain initially two dorsal aortae, which have meanwhile developed from the undifferentiated mesenchyme of this area. The somatopleuric layer and the splanchno-pleuric layer are continuous with each other at the root of the dorsal mesentery. Thus, the intra-embryonic coelom becomes well defined and the intermediate mesoderm projects into the coelom from the dorsal body wall on each side of the primitive dorsal mesentery. So this is the primitive dorsal mesentery. On each side of the primitive dorsal mesentery, the intermediate mesoderm projects into the coelom. So the intermediate mesoderm now lies in a position for the subsequent development of the urinary and the genital system. At first, the intra-embryonic coelom communicates with the extra-embryonic coelom in the umbilical cord around the vitelo-intestinal duct. Although the vitelline duct disappears early, the communication between the intra and the extra-embryonic coelom persists for a while within the umbilical cord, that is up to 5th week to the 10th week. During this period, a part of the midgut herniates into the extra-embryonic coelom, forming the physiological umbilical hernia. Now we'll see what are the derivatives of the gut from the endodermal layer. From the foregut, you get the epithelial lining of the pharynx, esophagus, stomach, duodenum up to the ampulla of Vater and the mucous membrane of the tongue. Then it gives rise to the epithelial lining of the respiratory system, auditory tube and the tympanic cavity. It gives rise to the parenchyma of the tonsil, thyroid, parathyroid, thymus, liver and the pancreas. From the midgut, you get the mucous membrane of the alimentary tract extending from the duodenum distal to the ampulla of Vater up to the junction of right 2/3 and left 1/3 of the transverse colon. The Meckel's diverticulum, when exists, is derived from the persistent proximal part of the vitelo-intestinal duct. From the hindgut, you get the mucous membrane of the digestive tube extending from the left third of the transverse colon up to the mucocutaneous junction of the anal canal, that is the pectinate line. And it gives rise to most of the mucous membrane of the urinary bladder and the urethra, parenchyma of the prostate, the bulbourethral or the greater vestibular glands. It gives rise to the epithelial lining of the vagina, and probably the primitive sex cells are derived from the dorsal wall of the hindgut.